Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing the notion of sort of quote-unquote ditching the COVID pass here in Thailand. And I bring this up because it recently came to my attention via BBC, that's bbc.com. Article is titled, "England Vaccine Passport Plans Ditched, Sajid Javid Says." And to be clear, and we've gone through this in other videos, I kind of make a distinction between what has been referred to, at least here in Thailand, as a vaccine passport, as opposed to this so-called COVID pass they've been talking about. Vaccine passport, as we've discussed, I kind of look at that as inoculation documentation associated with international travel. As we've seen in certain countries, malaria inoculations, things like yellow fever inoculations for certain countries. At least in the past, they would require these inoculations before one would be allowed to enter a given country. It's part of the entry requirements. I view that as very, very different than this notion of this pass that you have to carry around and present to businesses in your locality just to be able to get in and essentially live your life and enjoy going out into the world, basically. Quoting directly from this article, again, that's from bbc.com, title is "England Vaccine Passport Plans Ditched, Sajid Javid Says," quoting directly, "Plans to introduce vaccine passports for access into nightclubs and large events in England will not go ahead," the health secretary has said. Sajid Javid told the BBC, "We shouldn't be doing things for the sake of it," unquote. It was thought the plan, which came under criticism from venues and some MPs, would be introduced at the end of this month. Quoting further, "Just a week ago, the vaccines minister had defended the scheme as the quote-unquote best way to keep the night industry open." Quoting further, "Under the scheme, people who would have been required to show proof, whether of double vaccination, a negative COVID test, or finishing self-isolating after a positive PCR test, in order to gain entry to clubs and other crowded events. The Nighttime Industries Association had said the plans could have crippled the industry and led to nightclubs facing discrimination cases. The industry body welcomed Sunday's announcement, saying it hoped businesses could now plan with some certainty and start to rebuild the sector." I thought this was really interesting, and I've said this in another video, that notion of certainty. And I really can't stress this enough. I've discussed this with clients and folks that are in the business community, or were before they were effectively frozen out over the course of especially the last 4 months or so, and are, just trying to make ends meet, basically, and trying to get on with their lives. It's this notion of certainty. If moving forward, we're going to have to constantly be worried about all of these different, vicissitudes, if you will, of regulations just sort of being foisted, at the drop of a hat on businesses, that's a real problem. And people are going to have a really hard time justifying, at least to themselves, making any major kind of investment in an economy that, frankly, could be that fickle, that could just sort of come up with things, again, just sort of at the drop of a hat. But I thought it was really interesting that this has been rolled back, especially in the UK, as it seemed like they were pretty, for lack of a better term, pretty gung-ho about it moving forward. But it does not appear that is now the case. And clearly, as we've used this term before, it's sort of cooler heads prevailed. The business community especially made their seriously valid concerns, in my opinion, known, and folks, it looks to me like, reasonable people decided to go another way. My hope is, the authorities in Thailand, policymakers, will have a look at this and think to themselves, hey, maybe this isn't the greatest thing to be doing. My opinion, I don't really see the overall need for it, all things being considered. Moreover, I don't really see that legitimately injecting a third party between, two private individuals transacting is ever a particularly good thing. And again, based on the overwhelming data on this overall issue, I don't really see how it's justified in the first place. But, we're still sort of waiting to see how this is going to play out. I personally am hoping, again, we thought this might be implemented at the beginning of September. They've been talking, and I haven't seen anything that leads me to be convinced yet that this is going to become policy. I've seen some discussion about it, but I haven't seen anything that leads me to believe this is going to become hard and fast policy. And hopefully, again, maybe policymakers will have a look at this overall thing and say, maybe we should go a different way.